What makes this exchange so interesting is that Neil deGrasse Tyson never really gives Ben Shapiro the confrontation he seems to be looking for. Ben tries to frame the discussion as a battle between science and ideology, but Neil keeps pulling the conversation back to a much bigger question. What happens when scientific information gets turned into political power? That shift completely changes the debate.
We don't trust, I'm interpreting here, I think we as a society don't trust that people in charge in a free country won't try to legislate something that will constrict people's freedoms in the face of that information. I think that's the fear.
Well, isn't that...
It's a fear.
I mean, and isn't that...
We don't trust our own ability to govern ourselves in the face of what could be some information relative to other kinds of information.
Isn't that a bit of a problem?
Yes. Yeah. It's not. It means it's not a free society. It's not a society of free inquiry, which I think you need ultimately. But yeah.
My general take on all of this stuff, from climate change to gender dysphoria to all of these issues, is bring out the science and then let's hash it out. I think that the problem I'm seeing on a lot of sides
is, what is your motivation?
Why? Why does that matter?
It matters because if you have political power, you could end up creating legislation that subtracts freedoms from people who previously were enjoying the same freedoms as you. The history of that exercise
then make a better argument.
Doesn't end well.
Well, but the history of which exercise? Bring out all the science and let's hash it out?
I'm saying if you bring out all the science and the politicians hash it out, the history of that exercise is a recipe for disaster if it involves discoveries that put people's freedom as defined in our Constitution at risk.
But now you're arguing for limitations on areas of particular study.
No, I'm arguing on we need a way to shield, we need a way to protect people's freedoms in the face of whatever gets discovered scientifically.
Instead of arguing over whether every social question fits neatly into a scientific category, Neil points out that people can study these issues while still protecting individual freedom. His argument is basically simple. Discover what is objectively true, but don't automatically turn every discovery into a reason to control people's lives. And that puts Ben's repeated focus on whether something is scientific in a different light.
So I agree. I think that's what the Constitution is for, is to guard rights from...
But we're always fighting people who want rights are always fighting others who are saying they don't get the rights from the Constitution. This is a daily challenge on the progressive left. It is a daily challenge, right? Here's an example. I forgot how I ended up getting this phone call. It was some magazine that serves the gay community. And they want, I don't remember why, because they wanted my opinion on, they wanted my opinion about whether being gay was biological or mental.
Right, there's that new study that came out, this vast study.
Or psychological.
Right,
okay?
Right.
And I said, I don't care which it is. Find out what it is, fine. But the answer to that question should have no consequence on legislations or laws. Because, for example, suppose it said it's purely biological, okay? Then you say, oh, that explains it. Suppose it says it's purely psychological. What are you going to do now? You say, well, now you're going to go to the reorientation camps or whatever those are called, where they realign you because they say it's psychological rather than biological. All of a sudden, people start behaving in ways in society that want to constrict the freedom of expression of who and what people are. And that is a danger. So maybe there needs to be a line in the sand. Let science do what it does, but politicians keep us free. Yet there's so many politicians that are doing the opposite of that.
So why aren't you a libertarian?
And that scares me.
I'm a libertarian. Come over here. Just
okay.
The line is right here. Just join me over here.
There I go. Come in. I've read a lot about libertarianism. There's some fascinating strong points within it, but I would say that I have too much of me wants to help others to possibly cross over the line to libertarians. Libertarians, I got mine, you get yours, that's your problem. You know, I'm paraphrasing, of course. But my father was active in the civil rights movement. My mother went back to school when we were empty nest and she became a gerontologist. these are two fields that deeply are deeply concerned with the health and well-being of fellow members of our society. I grew up in that. I'm their kid, the astrophysicist. So I grew up in that, but my feet were grounded. And in fact, how do you like this pivot? You ready? In fact, I wrote a letter to my parents for their 30th wedding anniversary where I thanked them for keeping me grounded. And I reproduced that letter.
Oh yeah, no, it's beautiful. It's the book really is fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying that; it really is a beautiful book.
So if you read that, you will know I could never be full up libertarian.
See, okay, so just because my fans will murder me if I don't just point out, libertarians don't actually just want people to starve in the streets.
Okay, really?
We are big believers. Well,
you do want to feed people.
Well, yes, social fabric, very important. Taking care of people, giving charity, very, very important. Okay,
right.
So final scientific question for you. Obviously, we're doing hot buttons here, so we can get, we have to make sure that our click count is high, obviously. I mean, how else we're going to write a headline here and sell your book? So let's talk about abortion for a second. So when it comes to the scientific study of fetal development, there are people who are militating against, for example, the use of ultrasound techniques in pregnancy clinics. So Planned Parenthood famously objects to people using or government-funded 3D ultrasounds before an abortion. And their suggestion is that this is a violation of the freedom of women. Now, on an abortion level, what pro-lifers say is the science is fairly clear that the inception of life happens at conception, and then there's fetal development all the way continuously from point A basically to death. And so the attempts to draw particular lines, you can create
fetal development until birth.
Fetal development, and then you continue to develop as a human until you die.
Right, but it's not fetal.
Right, correct.
Okay.
Fair enough. So the question becomes on the abortion case: how much of that do you think is values driven, and how much of that that debate do you think is scientifically driven?
So I think we would all welcome a world where abortions are not necessary. And so everyone's focusing on abortion and not focusing on contraception, for example. And that, to me, that's an imbalanced debate.
I totally agree with this.
And you also know there are people who are anti-abortion and anti-contraception. And I don't think the history of our understanding of what it is to be human can ever be reconciled with that fact, all right? Sex is fundamental to sexual reproducing animals. Sex predates humans by 500 million years. So it's to try to legislate people to not have sex may be simply unrealistic. So you want laws that reflect what is possible, rather than to force what may be impossible, culturally impossible. So if you want to have the abortion debate, I would ask how many people who are anti-abortion and are not simultaneously deeply religious, right? So if there's a strong religious component of those who want to ban abortion, that's an interesting fact about the demographics of what's going on out there. And so that's one interesting fact. If you're concerned about what is alive...
Neil keeps asking what the purpose of the argument actually is. If the goal is genuinely to understand reality, then research should be welcomed, even when the results are uncomfortable or complicated.
Or what constitutes a human life? Because that really is the question. What constitutes a human life? Because obviously, if it's just what's alive, then save the flies, right?
Yeah, or sperm is alive, right? It swims.
Right.
It swims with a mission, right? So somebody has to say, okay, I care when it's a human life, all right? So then we have to, what makes it human? Is it just genetically human, or do you need a certain minimum neuron count to judge, well, now it is 10? So I think that can be debated. Just debate that. And I don't have opinions that I require other people agree with. All right? If you look carefully at my Twitter stream, rarely is there an opinion. The last time I remember posting an opinion, it was the Enterprise or or the Millennium Falcon, okay? And I pointed to a video where we tussled it out.
What was the outcome of that video?
Oh, definitely Enterprise. No question about it. But also, I said BB-8 is way cuter than R2-D2. That is an objective fact. I just want you to know.
I agree.
See? Okay.
He's designed to be cute.
He's designed to be cute. And R2-D2 was cute in 1975. You need a modern, updated version of what cute is. So is whether abortions are legal or not just a matter of majority vote in a society? Is it, these are questions that people are debating. I was content with whether a fetus is sustainable outside of the womb as a sort of a
dividing line.
As a divide. That made sense to me when that was put forth. To say that it's a human when it's just a fertilized embryo, I think most people don't know, particularly if they're religious. Last I checked these numbers, most fertilized eggs in a woman are spontaneously aborted. The body rejects most of the times there is conception. And so what do you do about that? Or do you want to create an incubation chamber so that every spontaneously aborted fertilized egg gets put in there and grows to a human? Otherwise, you'll get arrested for murder. So by the way, this is science informing the debate. Right? So I don't know where this is going to land, and I don't have opinions that I require other people agree with.
The strongest moment comes when Neil warns about politicians using scientific findings to justify restricting freedoms. That's where this stops being a debate about gender and becomes a debate about power itself. Neil didn't need to outshout Ben. He simply changed the question, and suddenly Ben was playing defense. So, did Neil actually shut Ben down? Or did he just completely change the argument? Let me know what you think in the comments.